What's up? So what's up, guys? My name's Tyler, and I run an Instagram account called at Coaster Addicts on Instagram. And basically, over the last year and a half, I've just been doing theme park and roller coaster strictly photography for that page, and I have gotten a lot of experience and learned a lot of different things. A lot from other people, a lot from trial and error, a lot from trial and error, different things that I've just collected a lot of information around, and I get a bunch of DMs all the time asking me what my tips for cameras are, what settings I use, composition stuff, things like that. So I thought I'd just cover it all in this video. Hopefully you can find something useful. If you find something useful, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more content. I post filmmaking, photography, video editing, adventure, stuff like that every week. So yeah, make sure to subscribe, turn on that bell to be notified when I post, and let's dive right into the video. Okay, so my first number one really big tip is to make sure you learn your camera enough to shoot in full manual mode before you go out. Yeah, aperture priority, shutter priority, things like that are cool, but if you want stellar photos, you need to be shooting in full manual. So even before you go to the park, when you're planning to go to a park, just once you have your camera fully, just learn how to use manual mode, experiment, go outside. If you don't have much experience shooting action things, go outside on the street, just take pictures of the cars. So you're going to want to make sure your shutter speed is at least at 1,000th of a second. And what shutter speed is the time that your shutter open and closes in. Look, all right, let me get you an example. Dry fire? It's not letting me dry fire this. Okay, so that's not cooperating. So I'll just show a video right here basically of what dry firing is. So the shutter speed is the amount of time that it takes for the lens to open and close. So if your lens is set, if your camera is set to take a picture at 1,000th of a second, it's going to capture all of the movement that happens in 1,000th of a second, which is extremely short. So what you're going to want to do is set your shutter speed really high, because when you're shooting roller coaster photos, you want to freeze that image, right? That's what you want to capture those emotions, the train, the track, whatever you're doing. So you basically just want that high shutter speed to freeze your image, capture that emotion, get that nice crispy shot. So when you boost your shutter speed, your image is going to be much darker, and the only way to really brighten that up realistically is to boost your ISO. And ISO is, the best way to describe it is adding in fake artificial light it's not real artificial light like this light is. It's like fake light that the image is adding in, so it's just boosting your exposure. And what that does is the more ISO you add, the more your image has grain, and you do not want grain. Trust me, I hate grain. But sometimes you just have to deal with it, but you're going to want to keep your ISO as low as possible. Another thing that is crucial in your amusement park and roller coaster and any basically action photography that you might do is making sure your camera is in continuous shooting mode. Pretty much all cameras have it. It's just mine shoots what's called 11 frames per second. So every second that you're holding it down, it'll shoot 11 different pictures in RAW mode. So this is what that sounds like. Yeah, it's nuts. But make sure your camera's in continuous shooting mode, because that is super crucial for shooting anything moving if you want to grab that nice crispy shot. So before we hop into our next topic, we're going to get some tips and tricks on composition from Daniel at DP Coaster Photos.
So composition in photography is where you're placing the object that you're photographing within the picture. Is it in the top, bottom, left, right? It's where your viewer's eyes are being drawn toward. So when you're taking a picture, you got to keep in consideration where your viewer's looking. There's a lot of different techniques, including the rule of thirds, which is talked a lot about. Imaginary tic-tac-toe board on your picture. It's also putting things in the center. Now, the best way for me to keep talking is to show you some pictures I've taken and the techniques and principles I've used on composition. So this first one here of Talon, rule of thirds, like I said, tic-tac-toe board. In the top left, you have the train. In the bottom right, you have the 0G roll. The picture is kind of divided in half, and the viewer's eyes are being drawn toward that train. It's the main thing in focus. It's the biggest object here on the track. But the 0G roll complements it with the colors and the line halfway through. Here in Wonder Woman, that face in the middle, that's the direct center of attention, And I made that. I made it in the center of the picture. The track is great. The train is great. Even that other face is great. But they are all complementing and framing that one face for this picture. Here on Skyrush, it's direct center. Up, down, straight in the middle of this picture. Now the eyes are being drawn from the bottom up towards the top of the lift. And those rider's hands up in the air help with the viewer look at that as the main subject here. Also, the third I put at the top of the lift hill. Here, pretty self-explanatory with the framing here of Talon. Track on the bottom and top, supports on the left and the right. Viewers' eyes are directed directly toward that centerpiece. Here on Apollo's Chariot, you got another line, but instead of it being center like Skyrush, I went from the bottom left to the top right on that lift hill. And again, divided in half. You got the one color on the top, the sky, the blue. Bottom right, you have the yellow and the purple in the middle. Viewers' eyes are going up the lift hill with that train. Now, you don't need a direct straight line to have a line. Here on Lightning Run, viewers' eyes are coming from the top left down to the bottom right. Even though you have all that wiggly track, viewers' eyes are going in that direction with that train. And it creates that motion that the ride has and now your viewers are looking at. Same here with Nighthawk. While this would have been a great frame here of the square up on the top, without cropping the bottom, viewers' eyes are going down the spiral. They're going from the front of this picture down into the picture with that spiral, going all the way down through. Here in Lightning Rod, while I cropped off that side of the track, and this isn't one line, this is two lines going from the top right there down to the center, and then the other direction. Viewers' eyes are going left, right, up, down with the track. Even though there's no train, that curvy track has a lot of motion to it. And finally here on Fury, with the track twisting, it's this curling motion with that train. Your viewers are being drawn in toward, you have the shadows on the foreground, it's brighter in the background with where the train is, and it's pulling you in. So I hope that helps you guys out in looking at the pictures that you take and how you want your viewers to look at your pictures.
So next, trust me, it will always look better if you shoot your photos in RAW mode. RAW mode is essentially capturing an uncompressed file. So there's like the two main types of files that people shoot in are RAW and JPEG. JPEG is probably what your camera is set to default. So you're gonna wanna just look up on YouTube how to change your camera to RAW mode. But basically what it is it just gives you a file that you can export off to your computer that is completely uncompressed. So it will take up a lot more space and you'll be able to shoot less photos on your SD card, but trust me, it's worth it. So your photos right out of camera, when you're just looking on your little LCD screen, they might not look more saturated or have higher detail, but trust me, once you put them into Lightroom or whatever your editing software is, it will look a lot better and you'll be able to crop in more, you'll be able to adjust your saturation more, just play around with your image more without losing all that quality and detail that you just worked so hard to capture. Okay, so next, don't be afraid to look silly. When you're shooting pictures sometimes, it's just the way it's gonna look. I've been caught by people that taking pictures of me and just send them to me after, of me lying on the floor like shooting a drop, random things. It's just weird, so don't really worry about what people think of you. I know some of you will, but then too bad. Just don't worry about what people think of you. Do whatever it takes, but don't break rules to get shots unless you're permitted by park. Which is hard to do. So just don't break rules at all. Don't hop over fences and stuff, but you can like lie down on the ground. Just try not to do it in the middle of a midway. People will get mad at you and they'll like kick you and stuff. So don't lie down in the middle of a midway. So don't lie down in the middle of a midway, but yeah, do whatever it takes to get the shot. That's not breaking rules. Okay, so Rick Gert sent me a little message on Instagram and told me, make sure to check the area before shooting. Knowing the surroundings can really help a certain angle look better, and I thought that was really true. So when you're shooting, when I go to a new park, essentially what I want to do is spend a little bit of time. I'll leave my camera in my bag in the room, wherever. Like when I'm at a new park that's I haven't been to before, just go walk around, get my credits, do whatever, right? Just ride, experience the park. And then later on, I'll be like keeping a keen eye on the side for cool little angles, things to shoot through, stuff like that. So when I'm looking and I find a cool spot, I'll actually just write it down on my phone, like on my notes or Google Keep or whatever, and then I'll go back to those angles later with my notes, and I'll go back to all those and I'll grab those pictures, because now I'll have targets of where I want to get, and I'll have more visual representation of that coaster. And it does help a lot when you're shooting through things. Your composition is a really big part of photography, and no one cares if you can shoot like a really cool picture of just an airtime hill with the sky. Yeah, that's awesome, but you also want to be able to shoot through trees, have that creative view. And that's also another big thing, is that's a lot more important than your gear. Your view and your skills, your knowledge of camera settings is so much more important than what gear you're shooting on. Next up, we have some tips and tricks on framing and composition, stuff like that, from Justin at Theme Park Labs.
What's up, guys? My name is Justin from Theme Park Labs, and I have a couple of photography tips for you guys, especially if you were posting to Instagram. So one of my biggest things is to keep your head on a swivel while you're inside the park. And what that means is when you're going up on your ride, hopefully you have a game plan and understand the general layout of the ride and the direction of travel of the trains. But look at it from up close, from far away, in the queue line, from other areas of the park, and just look around. A lot of times when you're walking away from a ride, you don't look behind you, and that can be some of the most unique angles that you find. So always be looking around for new angles, things you haven't seen before, stuff like that. Also, a lot of people try and get high vantage points while they are shooting a ride, but not many people get down low, and that's one of my favorite things to do, because there are so many times that I find a unique angle simply by getting close to the ground, if not on the ground, to shoot a ride that I'm looking for. Another big thing is to visit during every season if you can, because you're going to get different shots of rides depending on if it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Obviously, fall will give you colors, but the difference between summer and winter is the leaves on the trees. If you're in a state that sees seasons, during the summer, a ride may be completely obscured by the trees, but if you go back during the winter, I guarantee you're going to find some angles that you would not have found otherwise.
So one of my favorite spots to shoot in all of Canada's Wonderland is behind a little tiny corner behind the wave pool, the very back corner of the park at the water park. And no tourist, trust me, would ever find that. If you're just at the park for the first time, it's like there's nothing like shooting at your home park. That spot is probably going to be taken away by mountain jumping. So annoying. But yeah, so that should be a fun attraction. But yeah, so it's just little things like that at your home park, you're going to want to just walk around, take days without your camera and just walk around, find cool angles, even with your camera. Just go around, explore, go to places you wouldn't really think of. Never hurts just to go look around, try. You never know what you'll find. Now we have a little message from Joelle, who runs the Instagram account Inside Great Adventure, posts some really amazing photos from that park, on supporting the fact, actually, on why you don't need the best gear to take some awesome pictures.
What's up, guys? Inside Great Adventure. One thing that I've learned while taking photographs is that it doesn't always matter about what kind of camera you have, whether it's Nikon, Sony, Canon, or your phone. It matters about how you actually use the camera. Like, my account started off with an iPhone 7, and now it's where it is. So you don't need to always have the latest and greatest camera to get really awesome shots. So as long as you get used to your camera and tweak, exposure and shadows and things like that, you can get some pretty awesome shots of what you have.
So my main shooter right now is actually this Sony a6000 with a 55 to 210 millimeter lens. Nothing expensive. Has a little flippy screen here, not fully flippy like I would like it, like this one I'm shooting on right now, this Canon T5i. But yeah, get yourself a decent body. Doesn't need to be anything crazy expensive, because as I said just before, your creativeness and your knowledge of the camera, whatever camera that might be, is far more superior to your gear that you have and how many megapixels it shoots and how low your f-stop goes and stuff like that. So just get yourself a good, I prefer mirrorless cameras because they're much smaller, they shoot really good pictures, and they can fit in your bag nice and easily, because that's one of your priorities when you're just traveling and shooting is size and weight. You're going to want to have a nice small portable camera that can shoot amazing photos.
And now to close off the video, we have a little message from Itai at Itai Coaster Fanatic, and also a cool little tutorial on panning from the best in the biz at BK Photo Page.
What's up, guys? It's Bob from BK Photo Page here. I want to quickly talk to you about panning, since it's pretty much the number one DM I get asking questions about rides and other coasters and how I take my pictures. So settings-wise, first make sure you're in burst mode. Set your camera to ISO 100 and then a shutter speed of either 1/100th or 1/125th. As you get better at panning, you can lower that value lower, but it takes a while to get that good. So I would say definitely start at 1/125th. Put your camera in autofocus. Now, there are situations where you might need to be in manual, such as there's a fence in the way or there's some trees or things that your camera's trying to focus on instead of where you're going to be panning at. If that's the case and you have to go to manual, make sure you manually focus on exactly where you're going to be panning at, okay? Because most of the pictures are going to be blurry other than that general area. From there, what I do is I adjust my f-stop until the camera shows me a correct exposure, but your camera sensor can be easily tricked. So after I put it where the camera's showing me a correct exposure, I will take a picture of the area I'm going to pan at, and I'll just check it with my eyes. I'll just look, is it too dark? Is it too light? I'll adjust from there, and then I get ready to do the pan. Now, the number one thing you have to be able to do is match the speed of the train. Usually what I do, I'll use Diamondback as an example. Diamondback goes around that helix before it comes down into the splash pool, and I love panning it as it goes into the splash pool. So as it's going around that helix, I will get my autofocus right on it, on the front of the car usually, and I'll track the speed. And as soon as it starts coming down, I'll go boom, 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 and I'll track it as it goes. You have to get the speed right or it will come out blurry every single time. It's not unusual for me to take 200 pan shots and only get about 10 to 20 that are keepers. It takes a lot of practice, but just practice, 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 and just keep shooting, and eventually you'll get it right.
Hi guys, my name is Itai. I run the page Itai Coaster Fanatic on Instagram, and I just wanted to give a few tips for Tyler's video. So me starting as a photographer or coaster photographer, I started out with a phone, and my tip to you guys is just like, doesn't matter what you use, just like take a photo of any camera at all, like with your phone or just like spare camera you have laying around. Take a photo of a coaster at a theme park and just edit it. Like when you edit a photo, it makes it way better. Like editing photos makes photos pop out more appealing to people. It makes them want to like your photo. That is my tip for like starting photographers. You don't really need a big camera. Like I started out with a phone and then I grew from that. So just that's my little tip for you guys. Yeah.